What does it mean to be childish to you? I've always had a connection to my childhood that I'm not sure if I fully understand. I'm not sure if it's a simple desire that every kid, teenager, or even adult feels. The simple desire of not wanting to grow up. I feel like lots of what I put into my art, filmmaking, deep down, has a lot of things related to not wanting to grow up. Or at the very least, not letting go of the past.
No, turn around. Say, hi, Daddy. Keep singing. Hi, Daddy. What noise the elephant make? What noise the elephant make?
I'm a tumble. Get her.
Keep singing. It's beautiful. Keep singing. Huh? Just go. Just go. Where's my strong boy? Strong baby? Will you set the paper down and say your prayers?
Mommy, Sissy,
With Daddy soda. Soda. Soda.
Mommy, Sissy, amen.
Mommy, Sissy, amen. No daddy, huh?
Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to hold on to the memories of better times. However, over the past few years, I've realized that started to fade. While I may still be interested in the majority of the same things as I have been for years, they haven't been the same for a long time. And I can't put my finger on it, but there is a quote, the main quote from the movie Stand By Me. I never had any friends later on like the ones I had since I was 12. Jesus, does anyone? And I think that's so true. I'm 18 years old right now. I'm an adult. I'm supposed to be all grown up and mature. That's what I'm supposed to be. But I don't feel that way. I still feel like that 11-year-old kid that wanted to experiment with filmmaking by playing with his little toy cars and posting videos of it for the internet to see. When I was little, I always considered myself a collector. Whether that be toys, movies, video games, I always wanted to collect things and show what I thought were massive achievements to the world. However, I think that has also started to fade over the years. Maybe. When I started my senior year of high school, I focused on my personal life. Friends, family, all that stuff that you need to do in real life. However, while I do still think that it's most definitely important, I also think that it's important to still stay in touch with your childhood self. And never forget that. And the truth is, I'm terrified of letting that part of myself go. Throughout the past year, I've dealt with a lot. New friends, family, breakups. I started college. Every cliche thing that a teenage boy could be dealing with. Hell, I even made a couple of movies. And don't get me wrong, those are memories that I'm going to cherish for as long as I live. But on the other hand, they didn't feel like something I would look back on and call a childhood memory in a few years, because that's not what it was. And I needed to accept that. I need to accept that my childhood is over. But that doesn't mean I still can't preserve the memories I do have. The truth is, I've wanted to make this documentary since the year 2023. I wanted this to be something special, and something I would be able to look back on in a few years and say, wow, I really did have an amazing childhood, because that's what I want this documentary to capture. I want it to capture my childhood in a movie. I want to talk about the toys from my childhood and the memories I've had with them, and the people who are associated with them. I want to talk about Thomas, Cars, Toy Story, everything. I want these memories preserved, and I never want to forget them. So, here we are. Hey. So, I'm a big fan. I've been watching your work for as long as I can remember, and I was just curious if I would be able to just ask you a couple questions, if that's okay. Hello? You gonna talk? Son of a bitch! Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was originally based on a series of children's books created by the Reverend W. Awdry. Then, in 1994, a TV series was created by Britt Allcraft. The series was narrated by Ringo Starr and George Carlin, and it told stories of Thomas and his friends, and it became a world phenomenon, creating millions of toys and even a feature film in the year 2000 called Thomas the Magic Railroad. The most popular toy line, Thomas Wooden Railway, was made by Learning Curve Toy Company in November of 1992. It was discontinued in 2017, but then relaunched in 2022. I grew up with multiple Thomas and Friends toy lines, including Take and Play and Trackmaster. However, the original wooden railway models will always have my heart. I started playing with them when I was as little as 2 years old, and I have many memories with them, and I wanted to ask some questions to the adults that bought me all those toys.
Oh, I love Thomas. He was so fun.
I didn't watch that much.
Well, with Thomas, I think it's your second or third birthday, we got you a train table, and that kind of started fueling the obsession and watching the VHS over and over and over again.
Thomas the Tank Engine. You loved Thomas the Tank Engine when you were really little, and clearly still do. I honestly couldn't stand it.
I enjoyed Thomas. He was fun.
Good old Thomas. Thomas spent many a day at our house on the TV and in the living room on the floor.
Remember the narrators.
I like Ringo
The
Starr.
first of which you had in your prep had told me was
Ringo Starr.
Ringo Starr.
Beatles.
But I remember George Carlin being one. He could be vulgar, but he was funny.
7 words.
Yeah.
That you don't say on
No.
TV.
Third birthday is Thomas themed at Chuck E. Cheese. Worst mistake ever. Don't ever have a toddler birthday at Chuck E. Cheese on a Saturday. And yeah, it wasn't one that I thought would continue on for years and years and years.
I felt like I was sometimes that I lived on Sodar myself.
Well, you learned a lot about it.
Yeah.
For me.
Oh, absolutely. I learned a lot about it with this, from this little guy with all the curly hair, and it was always hanging in his face.
Well, because like you're like a toddler and you're rolling around and like you're like it was cute, it was fine, but then like, and you probably don't remember this, but like Ellie would be upset or something, or Ellie would cry, and you'd be like, Ellie's all silver steam and bossy boilers.
Oh.
Like, and just
I remember
and just like repeat stuff that whatever. Like I don't know. It was fun. It was cute. Like I got tired of watching those movies over and over and over again.
No, it was a great learning experience because I didn't know anything about Thomas when he was growing up. So when I babysat with him because his mom was in school, I got a lesson in Thomas the Engine.
It was fun playing with you. Like you always, for whatever reason, liked the wooden ones. You didn't like the plastic ones. You didn't like the motorized ones. You always wanted the wooden ones. You know, and in fact, I think there was a couple times like where you lost one and then you threw a fit, and we had to go to the store and try and find it to replace it.
The name, it's especially synonymous with Thomas. The name Leo is especially synonymous with you.
Oh yeah, because we watched, goodness, on TV we watched this fella named Leo because he must have had a house full
Yeah.
of Thomas.
He wanted to make the biggest Thomas collection is what he wanted to do.
I think he must have done it because from what we sat and watched, he had the newest and must have been the finest of everything that was Thomas.
But Mom, when I made a comment about Thomas' birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese, I don't know if you remember any of that.
I remember I wanted to drink, and I don't drink. I remember I made it through the entire thing, and then I found out they sold alcohol, and I was like, man, if I would have known this 3 hours ago, it would have made this so much better. Yeah, like you had a really cute Thomas cake, and we had Thomas plates, and I mean, it was fun. You know, I'm just, yeah, Thomas is fine.
Grandma, we have to watch Leo. We have to put him on now. And so that's what we watched. And he was entertaining, but my goodness, you wonder where the guy got the money. He was always showing off new things on his show, and his shows went on forever, it seemed like. But it certainly was interesting.
I wanted to go over all the different brands that I had of Thomas. I had Trackmaster, Take and Play, or Take Along. I had Ertl, and I had Thomas Wooden Railway. Thomas Wooden Railway was the thing that started my love of Thomas the Tank Engine toys. I have pictures of me playing with these toys, and they were an enormous part of my childhood. I have so many memories of playing with these toys and really enjoying my time with them. In regards to that, I had a birthday party that I really don't even remember since I was 2 years old that was Thomas the Tank Engine themed. So yeah, that entire franchise has stuck with me for an incredibly long time. When I was a bit older, maybe sometime in middle school, I decided to give away almost all of my Thomas stuff. For what reason, I really don't remember. My best guess was space, and I was just really tired of having them in my room. I won't lie, I really do regret that. However, I do still have to this day 2 of my Thomas Wooden Railway models that I wouldn't get rid of, that being Thomas and Diesel 10. In regards to Thomas, I had the Knapford Station playset that had special things on it to make certain trains whistle. This Thomas was one of those, and it was my favorite, so naturally, it was the one I kept. Diesel 10, however, was a bit different. How I got Diesel 10 was, my mom decided to take me and my younger sister to go see Cars 2, and I believe we actually went to Toys R Us, and my mom let us each get a toy, and I chose Diesel 10. What's funny is that my sister hated Diesel 10 because of his claw, Pinchy, which of course, I bugged her about the whole time. And yeah, that's it. Just like I've said before, I had many other brands of Thomas the Tank Engine toys, such as Trackmaster and Take Along. Now, compared to how much I loved Wooden Railway, I really didn't care for them. However, I still really enjoyed playing with them. I specifically remember getting the Shake Shake Bridge set for Christmas once when I was very little. There was also pictures of me with a giant Take Along set in the background, so I would say I enjoyed these two a fair amount. However, how I got into Ertl was a bit different. Now, when I was younger, I watched a lot of Thomas YouTubers, one of those being Leo Can Video. Leo Can Video also made a Thomas short film called Mad Bomber. Nowadays, it's considered a classic in the world of Thomas and Friends fan content, and in that video, he used the Ertl models. I was always fascinated by them and decided to ask for a couple. So, my aunt bought me a Thomas, and my great-grandma bought me Bluebell. Thomas was a no-brainer. However, with Bluebell, on the other hand, I just really liked her design. I thought it was really cool that she looked like a real tank engine. So, yeah, that's my history with Thomas the Tank Engine. don't get me wrong, in some ways, it's still a huge part of my life. Whether that be just watching a classic series episodes on VHS to watching something like the Magic Railroad parody, Thomas the Tank Engine will always be a show that I'll enjoy. And I'll always stand by that fact. Whenever I'm feeling a bit nostalgic, I'll just pop in a VHS and watch a classic episode. Toy Story is a series that I've held close to my heart since I was able to say the word heart. I've been watching the series for as long as I can remember. The concept and creation of Toy Story alone is so interesting to me because of the fact that Toy Story is made up upon circumstance and limitations. It was created to be the first computer animated film. The reason Toy Story is, well, Toy Story, is because the animation studio, Pixar, didn't have the confidence yet to make a film with humans as essential characters. The reason it's so short, 81 minutes, is also because of the limitations that the creators were presented with. Pixar's way of telling the story of Toy Story is something that no other studio has ever attempted, well, at least in 1995. The film is not about, hey, wouldn't it be funny if toys were alive? But instead, it's about, wouldn't it be emotionally and physically compelling and terrifying if toys were alive? All 4 of the Toy Story films have had a profound effect on me. However, the first 2 films are the ones that I cherish the most. They are 2 of my favorite films of all time, and it's the first one is the only film that I think I can quote from beginning to end. Maybe other than Cars. The Toy Story toys have always been a huge part of my childhood. I have many memories with Toy Story toys, as well as getting some for Christmas and birthdays. Getting new Toy Story toys was always something that I cherished. I figured, why not talk to some of my family members and friends who have their own memories with Toy Story, and ask some of the people who got me some of those toys. And then
Target. And
Bullseye.
Bullseye.
Woody, Buzz, the whole gang quickly became good friends of yours. Again, watching not only the movies, but the special features and, fueling your obsession with John Lasseter. And, but like the thing that I'll never forget is coming downstairs I was downstairs first, and then you come running downstairs and you're like, I need a Hawaiian shirt or something. And I was like, what? And I need a Hawaiian shirt. And so we'll go upstairs and you had like this one random orange like button down shirt that had Hawaiian style flowers on it. And I was like, this is the closest thing we got, kid. And I remember being downstairs and you come running down and you're setting up your toys. And I come into the room a little bit later and you've got Buzz and Woody and all your little random Disney Pixar friends and sitting there with your hand like a microphone, and you're like, hi, I'm John Lasseter, the creative director of Disney Pixar Films.
Hi, I'm John Lasseter, director of Toy Story. Welcome to this 10th anniversary edition of Toy Story.
I'm here with my good friends, Buzz and Woody.
Look around me. These are Andy's toys.
And you proceeded to just have like this 10-minute monologue of interviewing them, and it was because you had seen interviews and that on the special features and on YouTube and whatnot, and I just like always remember that. You were 4 maybe, and just talking like you were a whole adult sitting there in your orange Hawaiian shirt.
I remember we had to find Woody's hat.
Yeah.
At
One of the get-togethers.
one of the Labor Day picnic, because Woody's hat disappeared in transit between going to the food line under a picnic awning.
Yeah.
And going to a table to sit down and eat. Woody lost his hat, and we couldn't leave until Woody found his hat.
And we never did find his gun.
Well, he never came with a gun.
He never had a gun.
I know that.
Oh. You silly.
Woody. My buddy Woody. Woody shared a lot. Woody was with us a lot.
I always liked Tom Hanks
Yeah.
as Woody. It was just the springy thing, dog,
Slinky.
Slinky.
I know there was a pig. Ham. Yeah, there was Ham and Mr. Potato Head and I'm doing better than I thought I would.
Good
He
old
was funny,
Slinky.
and so was the potato
Potato
head.
heads.
Potato heads. They were funny, and it was just well put together, and I liked it.
And we enjoyed watching it with you.
Mm.
Because that meant we got to spend time with you.
Oh, there's a snake in my boot. Toy Story, Woody and Buzz, and all the guys. Oh, that's fine. Again, I don't remember exactly when you fell in love with it, or exactly how old you were, or anything like that. I can just remember being in a store and being like, "That's Woody, that's Buzz," and it just seemed like out of nowhere you were into it. Again, like these were movies that came out when I was young.
Yeah.
And I never like truly got into it like some people do.
Mm.
But I had seen them. I hadn't seen them in years at that point.
Yeah.
Always fun to watch you play with them and talk to them, and because when you were little, you're like, well, they're alive in the movie, so when I leave the room, they move, and
Yeah, initially that was the thing you always said you were going to grow up, is that you were going to be an animator, that you were going to, create films like Disney, Pixar, and cartoons, and and all of that, and start, drawing your little comic type pictures, and
like I think you even came downstairs at one point. You're like, Dad, Woody was on my bed, and now he's on the floor. He moved.
And play. Yes, we played. I never did anything else but play. I don't remember doing anything else.
you were definitely your own person from the get-go.
Yeah.
You could have a very vivid imagination and see those little gears turning, you know, in your head, always with some crazy idea of, and you always, you wouldn't just like sit down and play with your toys. It was always a whole like scripting thing,
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I remember was, and people mentioned, was I used to always, like, I wouldn't watch, especially with Toy Story and Cars specifically, I wouldn't watch the movies. I would want to watch the special features. And if you remembered anything,
Yeah,
like that.
I do that. Like, it was super annoying. Like, because I mean, it wasn't terrible, but like that was DVDs, and it's like, oh no, like watch. And I think that's when you got into like you became obsessed with John Lasseter, was because you watched all the special features that talked about the making of stuff, and and that's how you learned about Kyle Arts, was from like that's where John Lasseter went, and from those special features.
Think about this little person run around your living room, coming in hollering, Grandma, Grandma, I want to watch such and such. And you think, oh good, he wants to watch the movie this time. And you turn it on for him and you get it all set. And he turns around and looks at you and says, but I want to watch bonus features first. Well, bonus features and John Lasseter was, I thought at first maybe they were going to be the death of me, but they got so that we kind of memorized them by heart. I had memorized a lot of it, but it was funny because you were like a professor. You could rattle this stuff off everything that John Lasseter ever said, repeat. He could sit down and talk to you like a grown person about all this stuff. And if you said something and it was not the right thing, he'd correct you. You know, Mr. Encyclopedia. And then he started asking his mother for Hawaiian shirts to wear, because that was the attire of the day for John Lasseter. He always had a bright Hawaiian shirt on in the
Bonus
film,
features, yeah.
in the bonus features when they were talking about everything.
I have many Toy Story related memories in regards to the toys. One of the earliest ones that I can remember clearly is when I was with my family when I was at Target. I was riding in the cart and we were in the toy section. I saw a Toy Story gift set. It was called the Rocket Adventure Set. It had action figures of Buzz Lightyear, Woody, and the rocket called the Big One. We ended up getting it, and I can only assume I was extremely happy. I only have one of the original figures now, that being Buzz Lightyear. You can see he was extremely well loved, and I know for a fact that I played with him an insane amount. Actually, his hand is missing, and I have no clue how that happened, nor do I have any clue where it is now, as it was an incredibly long time ago. The Woody action figure that originally came with it, its leg broke off, but I still kept it for a while. I eventually lost him, and I have no clue where it is now. However, I actually was at a garage sale once, and found a better conditioned one of the exact figure I had, and of course, I bought it. I had the rocket for a while, but it broke pretty early on from what I can remember. It actually made sounds, and it would say phrases that Woody and Buzz would say. However, I ended up taking it into the pool with me, so of course, it ended up breaking. The set of figures will always have a special place in my heart, and I'll always remember how fun they were when I was little. Another early Toy Story related memory I had was getting some of the original Toy Story toys from 1995. Firstly, I got an original 1995 Woody and Buzz Lightyear from my cousin Adam. He was probably about 15 at the time, and I was probably 6 or 7 years old. He let me have them, and I loved them for a very long time. However, neither of those original toys ended up lasting. Buzz Lightyear's hand ended up falling off, and his leg ended up breaking. Woody, on the other hand, was a bit different. I was over at my grandma's, actually getting some ice cream that my grandma was giving us. I was in the kitchen, and I had left my Woody doll in the living room, which was where my younger brother was. My grandpa walked back into the room and told me that my brother broke it. He kept on pulling the string repeatedly and too hard, and that ended up breaking the spring in the voice box. To put it simply, I was incredibly sad. However, in terms of the original Toy Story toys, I definitely didn't just have those. I want to say in around 2017, there was a giant garage sale day where I live. I just decided to go out and see what I might be able to find. I walked around the corner of my house, walked up a bit, and came up on a house that was selling a lot of toys. I saw a small basket that was filled with Toy Story toys. And these particular Toy Story toys were not new per se. They were clearly from 1995 to 1999. And in that box, it included an original 1995 Woody and Buzz Lightyear. I checked the price tag on the box, and it read $5. I ended up asking if the people at the garage sale could hold it for me, and they said yes. So I ended up running home, getting my money, and buying that box. That was definitely one of the best garage sale finds I've ever had. Immediately, I checked if that Woody and Buzz both worked. And they did. The only downside was that the Woody didn't work for that long. I believe it was only a few months, if that. Then, the Woody ended up breaking as well. However, I still had that Buzz Lightyear, which made me happy. And it wasn't just the Woody and Buzz Lightyear that was there. There was a lot more, too. In fact, there was a lot of original Happy Meal toys from Toy Story and Toy Story 2, as well as an original Woody figure. And for a fun fact, that was the only toy I ended up taking to my 11th birthday party. It was at a hotel. So, he came with me when we went to go get breakfast that morning, and he sat on my nightstand at night. Also, when I was in my high school film class, I decided that I wanted to make a documentary about the making of Toy Story and what could have been, as well as talk to someone who only likes the first film, and purely for nostalgia reasons.
What is the nostalgia you have with the first Toy Story film?
The first Toy Story film, which I believe came out in 95? Yeah, 95. I was 10, so I was a kid. I loved it. It was one of my favorite cartoons. Interesting, cartoons. it was certainly not something that followed me into adulthood. It's not like my Nightmare Before Christmas where I still like watch it and enjoy it, but I watched Toy Story a lot. It's probably the reason why, as a kid, I would feel bad leaving stuffed animals at the store. Like, because I felt like they had feelings, and then they felt like they were going to just be sad and stay at the store. Like, I probably got that feeling from Toy Story. I'm quite sure. But I loved that movie when I was a kid.
What do you think the world of animation would be like if Toy Story had flopped?
I don't think... what would the world be like if Toy Story flopped? I don't think it was going to flop. Before that, and the reason why I don't think it was going to flop is because of how much Steve Jobs put into Pixar prior to Toy Story. And Steve Jobs really had a good, he had a really good, he had a good way of kind of looking around the corner and seeing where the industries of technology and entertainment were going to go rather than where they were. He did that very well with Apple, right? So I think that he saw the value in the technology, and he knew that it was going to be the future. So I don't think it was ever going to flop. I guess it could have. I mean, it's a film like any other. The story could have flopped, but they picked such an incredible universal story. You're talking about the importance of a child and his toys, not just a child and his toys, but a boy and his relationship with his toys and how that ties to his imagination. So the story was, it was masterfully done. It was going to appeal to kids, right? So I don't think it would have flopped from a commercial standpoint at all. I mean, it was too well thought out. Plus, it's not like they picked a bunch of jabronis to do the voice work, right? You had Tom Hanks and Arlie Ermy and all sorts of other people doing the voice work. So I think that I don't think it was going to flop. I think if it did flop, though, at best it probably would have pushed that sort of animation back, but it wouldn't have held it up.
Toy Story is one of my favorite films of all time. It's a piece of my childhood that I hold incredibly dear to my heart. The memories that I have with the franchise are unparalleled compared to memories I have with other films and franchises, except for Cars. It truly is my biggest connection to my childhood. It doesn't matter how old I would be, but as cheesy as it sounds, Toy Story was always there. Again, as I've stated before, I have so many Toy Story related items. However, my favorite one of all time is my original Woody doll that I got on Christmas morning when I was 4 years old. It became my favorite of all time. As silly as it sounds, it's still my favorite. I can't explain it, but it is. I don't remember how I felt when I got it, and I also don't remember what I thought. However, I do remember getting it that day, and distinctly how old I was. I think that's intriguing. I've always focused on my age at certain times in my life. I think because, as much as it feels like I'm in a hurry to, I don't want to grow up. I want to stay young, like in the good old days. I don't want to move on. Eventually, though, I realize if I choose not to move on, I won't experience what the rest of my life has to offer. If I get stuck in the past, I won't be able to experience the future. Spider-Man! Spider-Man is most likely the most influential franchise that I've mentioned. I first got introduced to Spider-Man when I was just 7 years old, and have been a fan since. I've seen all of the films in the theater that have come out since 2014. Seeing the Spider-Man films in the theater was always and is still something I cherish to this very day. However, I may love all the Spider-Man films, and I even love the comics. Hell, in 2024, I collected almost the entirety of the 2000 to 2009 Ultimate Spider-Man series in a matter of 6 months, since it was a series that I've always wanted to read. Spider-Man was the reason I got into filmmaking. I started watching Spider-Man fan films in 2014, I watched Peter's Web by Roger King, and many others as well. While my original dream was being an animator and working for Pixar, Spider-Man was what made me want to make movies. In 2018 and 2019, a while after I got my first phone, I made my first Spider-Man films. I've been making these films now for over 5 years. Since then, I have always dreamed of making a great Spider-Man film, and being satisfied with what I had created and put in the world. Because of the pandemic, I took a break. However, in 2021, I released another Spider-Man short film. This, while not being the biggest upgrade, I was still proud of it at the time, since I was only 14. In 2023, I decided, why not, and tried to make a Spider-Man feature film. I approached it with the mindset that if I couldn't make any other Spider-Man film again, I would be happy with this one. And, needless to say, I kind of failed. While I am still proud of what I have done, especially from looking at it at the viewpoint of, oh, most 17-year-olds don't have a feature film under their belt. However, during the making of this film, there were many issues that arose. It took a year and a half to complete, starting from March 2022 to the month of June 2023. Many people were recast, whole characters had to be cut out, and there were more scheduling issues than you can even think of. Comparing how long it took to make The Exceptional Spider-Man to how long it took to film I'm Not a Hero, a year and a half compared to 4 months, is night and day. Now, when I look at The Exceptional Spider-Man, I can still appreciate it for what it is, and that I threw aside everything to make what I thought was my dream Spider-Man film. However, now, I just see its faults. However, despite everything, I can still say, yeah, I did that.
Spidey, probably grade school age that started, like, I don't know, 7 or so.
Spider-Man. I don't remember exactly when you got into Spider-Man, to be honest with you. I don't recall what caused you to get into Spider-Man. I just know that, like, one day you started, like, doing this thing and you haven't quit. Look at your senior pictures. I do remember taking you to go see one of the Spider-Man movies, one of the new MCU movies, and like you were all decked out and you wore your mask, and the lady's like, yeah, you can't wear a mask in here. And, you know, and the Spider-Man ones with Tobey Maguire, those are the ones that I grew up with. And like I remember, like I was given from my girlfriend, my high school girlfriend, because we had seen those movies, and she had given me a Tobey Maguire, like I think it was a graduation present. So we had seen the movie. It was a Tobey Maguire Spider-Man figure, but it wasn't a little figure. It was a big figure, and it had the cloth uniform on, or the cloth costume, and the mask could come off. And like had a little Velcro on the back. I don't have specific, like there's not just one specific thing that comes to mind when you hand me the Spider-Man thing, and I think of you and Spider-Man, because it's like been synonymous for years now.
Spidey has been a large part of our life. Still is a large part of his life. I still have a mask. Spider-Man kind of took over. I think maybe there might be some molecules of Spider-Man's blood running through his veins.
Remember, we went to the comic store and for Free Comic Day, and went in there and looking around, and the other kids are looking at like the comics, and that goes straight for the action figures and toys. And I don't remember what you called it, but you came running back to me and your dad, and you were like, I need $85 for this rare such and such.
It was a Mego.
This is Spider-Man from Mego. Mego had the master toy license for Spider-Man.
Mego, that's what it was. And you were like, they have this Mego Spider-Man, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, what? And like, show me where it is. And so you showed it to us, and you were just losing your mind over this like $85 action figure. And we were like, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. But I just remember like, we laughed about that for the longest time.
We made costumes.
I made a few.
You made masks. I helped with a few costumes. I bought costumes. Web shooters, I know we made a number of those kinds of things. I don't know if they worked out so well.
When you saw my first, not only my first short film, so when you saw the movie I made, what was your about Spider-Man? And like, cause you were like, you obviously getting me a phone for Christmas was like, and then like, I think about half a year later, a few months later, I was like, what am I doing? Why don't I make a Spider-Man movie? And showing you guys all those, what were your thoughts on that too?
I mean, I'm not terribly surprised. And I've always been a creative type, and so, you know, naturally each of your kiddos have your own creative outlets, and, you know, I think it's super cool that you're so into film, and I'm proud of you for, you know, exploring that. I remember you being like grade school age and making costumes and literally like taping and stapling pieces of felt together to make your Spider-Man costume. And I just remember like telling coworkers and friends about it, and like, you know, I'm like, I don't know if I have a filmmaker or a future fashion designer on my hands, but yeah.
When you guys saw my movie as well, and what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I thought your movies are good. I sometimes thought that you were a little too adventurous and took too many risks, but you survived.
You enjoyed the filming, the editing, and all that stuff, and all that's involved with that, but and the prepping, but you were somewhat pushy with people to play part. JB, the organist at church, and he jumped right in and did his own makeup and everything. You had costumes you make up and he'd wear, or
I mean, you've made three different suits for me, and that's one of the things that I
think.
Yeah, it was three, at least in terms of recent times.
But people down at your church family
support you and your efforts.
They spent a lot of their time supporting.
So Spidey's a cool
thoughts when you saw a feature film that I made, and you guys all sat down and watched that. What were your thoughts on that too?
It was fun. Like, you know, you did something. You told a story that you came up with. That it's just like when I was young. I used to write like Lord of the Rings fan fiction, kind of. Like I'd write my own backstories for Lord of the Ring characters.
Yeah.
Or I'd like come up with like missions for my G.I. Joe characters, like and play it out. Like we just didn't record stuff, but like it was like that role playing stuff. It was cool. I was glad to see. It was fun to watch your creative juices flow.
I had a shed in the backyard. Well, he decided that was perfect for Spidey. So lo and behold, he climbed up garbage cans and trash cans, got on top of those, and climbed up on top of the shed and would sit up there poised like Spider-Man and holler at me. Hey, Grandma, look at me. And then he'd jump down. Scare me to death. Think he was going to have broken legs, plural that is. And just think it was the biggest thing. Funny to him. So that went on for years and years and is still going on, the Spidey.
Well, and I was curious because I know I've shown, not only have I shown you my newer movies, but I've also shown you some of my older ones on what your thoughts were on me with making those and just filmmaking in general, and seeing the progression of me wanting to watch bonus features and then to learn how to make it and then making one myself.
I think it's terrific, and I think you should just go right on and do it. And I enjoy watching your movies. I want to see what you're doing, and I'm all for it. You know that. I always have been. From the day you landed on this earth, I've always been for everything you're doing. So I think that you have a creativity that most people don't have. So why not? Why stifle it? I mean, full speed ahead.
I've talked briefly about how Spider-Man has impacted me, how he's influenced me with my filmmaking. However, I neglected to talk about one of my favorite moments in regards to Spider-Man. That being when I saw Spider-Man 2 in the movie theater the day before my 18th birthday. I was 7 years old when I first watched this film. I remember it vividly. I was at my great-grandma's house. She had a DVD rack in the corner. I remember she had DVDs of Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. I could only assume I knew who Spider-Man was. I knew I recognized the name, but I had never seen anything or knew anything about him. Watching that DVD, little did I know it, would change my life. It would change it for the better. Ever since I was 7, I've always loved Spider-Man 2. Seeing this film in theaters is one of the best experiences of my life. In fact, the film wasn't playing where I live, so my dad, one of my best friends, and myself all drove there. In fact, I probably wouldn't have been able to even go. But luckily for me, its re-release was the day before my 18th birthday. I remember asking my dad about seeing it, which was probably like 50 times. But I was really scared that I would miss out on seeing my favorite film in the theater. Luckily, I didn't. I remember, my dad bought the tickets on April 5th. I was so excited on the days leading up to it. Throughout the day, I was anticipating it, waiting for school to end so that we could begin the drive to the theater a couple of hours later. However, when I was in the car, I was weirdly calm. It was probably just because I was with my friend. However, as soon as we pulled up to the theater and we were waiting outside, I was jumping up and down like a little kid. Even after we got our tickets, our popcorn, and even when we sat down, it still hadn't hit me. It hadn't hit me that I was going to watch my favorite film of all time in a theater. And then, the film began. As soon as the opening theme hit my ears, I was enamored. My eyes were glued to the screen. I grinned like a goddamn goose. I was smiling the whole time. When Spider-Man was delivering the pizzas, I felt like a kid again. There were moments when something would happen on the screen, and my best friend and I would look at each other and laugh. It was just perfect. If I can be cliche or cringy for a moment, I've legitimately had dreams about seeing this film in a theater. I really have. I thought I would never get the chance. And now, I have seen it. It was the best theater experience I've ever had. Call me a fanboy, I don't give a shit. In my opinion, and my Raimi shill nostalgic Spider-Man fan opinion, this film is flawless. To do what's right, we have to be steady and give up the thing we want the most, even our dreams. I didn't make that my senior quote for no reason. Spider-Man 2 is a film unlike any other that I've ever seen. It is the only one that has resonated with me like it did. This film inspires me. It inspired me to be a filmmaker. It inspired me to want to do better and be better. It made me learn what being a hero means, and it made me learn that you don't always have to be wearing red and blue spandex to be one. You could be a flawed human. You could be a young man who wears glasses and wants to make films. I adore this film. It's been one of my favorite films since I was 7 years old. And Spider-Man 2 will continue to be one of my favorite films of all time. Spider-Man, as a character, and as a presence in my life, will forever be there. And I will be forever thankful for him. Thankful for him showing me that I can be a filmmaker if I want to be. He showed me how to fight for what is right. And, of course, he showed me that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Another big collection of mine, and one of my favorite franchises, is, of course, Star Wars. I got into the franchise when I was about 13, and started out with collecting the Power of the Force figures. However, when I got older, I eventually transitioned to just collecting vintage figures. I'd go to toy stores, I'd go lots of places, and I would find different action figures. This is the store, guys. However, there is one figure among these that will always be my favorite, and I actually already made a video about him. Roll it. Star Wars means something to a lot of people, and for kids in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I'm pretty sure the thing that they loved most about it was the toys. As everyone knows now, Star Wars is still a toy empire. Kids and collectors go nuts for them. I, on the other hand, was not one of them. At least, for a long time. For a while, I never really cared about Star Wars. After all, science fiction was never really my sort of thing. It was always the action and superhero films for me. Until I found an old figure. One day, I was playing with Legos at my grandma's house when I found a figure that was definitely not made of colorful pieces. It was an original Bespin Luke Skywalker, released in 1980 for the film The Empire Strikes Back. There was something about the figure. I don't know what, but I really loved it. It wasn't long until I wanted more figures like that. Sometime later, I went to Walmart with my grandma and siblings. My birthday was coming up, and my grandma told me to pick out something that I would like. So I picked out 2 action figures, Rey and Kylo Ren from the Star Wars Vintage Collection line. Somehow, I convinced my grandma to let me have the Kylo Ren action figure early because I really wanted to play with him. I wanted him to fight against my Luke Skywalker. I remember having a blast having the two of them fight each other. To this day, I still don't understand why, but I love the design of Bespin Luke Skywalker. Maybe it's the badass nature of Luke and the scene in which the action figure comes from. When Luke fights Darth Vader, and when he tells Luke that he is his father, the image of that scene is still stuck in my mind. In every iteration of the Bespin Luke action figure, they are all cool. The other one I have is the Power of the Force 2 version. Just because his body is a bit more muscular than the original, doesn't mean it's terrible, and in my opinion, Kenner had gotten a lot better at the action figures by this point the figure was released. Compared to the first Luke that was released in that line, it looks a lot better. Also, unlike the original figure, the Power of the Force version has a detachable hand, so if you really wanted to, you could reenact the scene when Darth Vader cuts off Luke Skywalker's hand. At the end of the day, it still doesn't matter what line it's from, but Bespin Luke will always be my favorite Star Wars action figure. To me, however, the original 1980 figure will always stand the test of time. Power Rangers. Power Rangers was something that I got into when I was a bit younger. When I was probably between the ages of 8 and 10, I found 2 DVDs and 1 VHS at my grandma's house. They were the first 3 volumes of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, and to this day, it's still my favorite iteration of Power Rangers. I watched them, told my dad, and he told me about the original series. Then, I started watching it, and of course, fell in love with the Green with Evil storyline, and properly got introduced to Tommy Oliver. And in 2017, when the new movie came out, I was even more excited, and I loved it. I saw it twice in the theater, and continuously rewatched it on DVD. I always rewatch Power Ranger episodes here and there, and of course, when Once and Always came out, I loved it. But once again, my dad was the original fan, and the one that truly introduced me to the original series.
Oh yeah, Blue Power Ranger dude.
Not only me, but also Dad watched a lot of Power Ranger stuff when he was little, so if you guys had anything to say about that, I was curious.
Well, I enjoyed watching Power Rangers with your dad. It was always fun.
I always thought the Power Rangers were kind of strange because it was always filmed in a town park somewhere. And they just did a lot of acrobatics.
Like the Pink Power Ranger.
If there was any real fighting, it was obviously staged.
Yeah.
And it was just in a town park.
I played with Power Rangers when I was a kid, and like when I was an older kid, probably I shouldn't have been playing with toys, but you know, they came out when I was in like middle school or a little before middle school, and I think of you know, recording episodes on VHS and then like having my figures, because I had some figures. I had some of like little guys like this. I remember one Christmas, that's like essentially like that was all I got for Christmas was Power Rangers toys.
Wow.
And it was still Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but it was like when they switched to like the Ninjetti, so it was like the Red Dragon Zord,
Yeah.
and the Toad, and like they had the ninja outfits, and it was
And the Falcon Zord and stuff like that.
Yep, and so it was tied into like the movie that came out. But I remember it was one Christmas I got because they didn't come together. Like the Red Dragon Zord was separate, and then all the other ones that made the body, the smaller ones like the Toad and the ape or the chimpanzee, whatever it was. Like I had the Dragon Zord, I had the White Tiger Zord, And yeah, it was just like, it was fun. And I remember when you were little and you started getting the Power Rangers, it was like, oh, cool, like it's something we can share because I played with those too. So, and you know, the Green Ranger was a badass. So,
well, and you took me to see the Red Time Force Ranger. So even though that wasn't a Mighty Morphin, like, would you say that was still a cool experience, being able to say, oh yeah, I met a Power Ranger?
Yeah, no, like when you told me about that guy, like I didn't know who the guy was, because I obviously didn't watch those Power Ranger shows.
Yeah.
I'd gotten too old or whatever it was, but yeah, no, like to see your excitement and you know, and then to be like, wait, you're his dad? That was pretty funny. Yeah, no, he was a cool guy, and it was like, that was a fun experience. Yeah.
I'm always going to love Power Rangers. However, it wouldn't be right if I didn't mention this. As most know, Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, passed away in 2022, and I was heartbroken to hear it. And it's always bittersweet for me now to look back at the franchise. But when I do, I think about all the memories that it had brought me.
Okay, here we go. Focus, focus, speed. I am speed. I am Pixar Cars, Collector 95. Ready. One video, at least 1,000 views. I eat 1,000 views for breakfast. Breakfast? What did I have for breakfast? Cinnamon Toast Crunch, no. Stay focused. Cars Collector.
Yeah, that video was taken about 5 years ago, and, I guess nothing's changed. Cars has always been seen as the odd one out of Pixar's film lineup. People say stuff like, the world doesn't make sense. Well, guess what? I don't care, because I absolutely adore Cars. This has always been one of my favorite films of all time, unironically. It always has been. And I never understood the hate. I won't lie, the amount of nostalgia I have for this film is unmatched. I used to run around my house at age 3 or 4 screaming, I am Speed, while running super fast and saying ka-chow. I'm not joking. Pixar Cars has always been one of my all-time favorites. In fact, it's one of my comfort films. I used to fall asleep to it while I was younger. And I still do to this very day. I have memories of waking up in the middle of the night and hearing the DVD menu music play as I opened my eyes. And I would just hit play and start the film all over again. If I were to name a film that I've watched more than any other, it would be Cars. I have more than half of the movie memorized. I'm not kidding you when I say my dad had told me multiple times that he had the film memorized because I would watch it so much. And not only that, he would recite the film to me like it was a bedtime story to make me go to sleep. I loved Cars, and I still do. The first videos that I ever posted onto YouTube, in fact, were Cars videos, and I credit that with figuring out that I can make movies. However, I sort of fell out of Cars. Every couple of years, I would have a phase where I thought I was going to get back into Cars, then I just wouldn't. I thought I was too old. Not for the film, maybe for collecting the diecast, or maybe I thought I was too old for the movies too, who knows. However, a few months ago, I would find myself casually rewatching it. I always looked at it as my movie when I was little. It was just always there, and it was always on. I will not hesitate when I say that Cars was always on when I was younger, and if it wasn't Cars, it was Cars 2. Now we're getting into two of the biggest, probably two of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Hey, this was still
This
together.
is Fred, right?
Yep.
Thank you. He knows my name. He knows my name.
So
And
those
McQueen.
are Fred and Doc are the original ones. McQueen is the one I rebought.
Lightning McQueen. We watched the movie Cars probably 1,000 times, and then it became where you didn't want to watch the movies per se, but the special features.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Speed McQueen, as Grandpa called him.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because he wouldn't say lightning. He called him Speed. Because the whole I am Speed.
I had the pleasure today of going to the movies, and we saw a fantastic film, Cars, and it was good. And I hadn't seen it in years. What was it, the 20th anniversary?
Next year will be the 20th anniversary.
So it had been a while since I'd seen the movie.
Because those three were the ones that you kept at your house originally when I was really little.
Yeah.
And you marked them.
This is Fred.
And you marked them
The Rusty's guy?
Red Sharpie to prevent me from mistaking them with my own.
So you'd have something to play with when you were here.
Yeah.
And knowing the name of all of them, not just like the main characters, but all of these like random people. And
I remember you being little and like going to the toy stores back when Toys R Us was still open, or we were anywhere, and you'd want to look for Cars stuff, and like, I don't have this one, and like, oh, that's the Peterbilt, or that's the Hauler.
And you'd play with them for a long time before you got tired of them.
Lightning is he's still got it plenty, hasn't he? He was something else in that film. I had the best time watching. Sat there like a little kid, like all the little kids around me. And some of the big kids around me.
Yeah, I'd say Doc's a favorite character of mine.
Oh, is that right?
Besides McQueen.
He was better than Hopalong Cassidy on black and white TV.
Yeah.
When I was growing up.
yeah, anytime we even entered Walmart or Target, it was, can we look at the cars? Can we go look at the cars? And we go back there and look and, see if they had any of the, characters that you didn't have yet, or, looking through them and seeing if there were any more of the more, like, not as popular characters that, weren't readily available. And just every time, can we look at cars? And I'd be like, I need to do my shopping first. And that was usually how I got you to somewhat behave, was, as long as you're good while we do our shopping we need to do, then we can, as a reward, go look at the cars.
I remember we took you to see Cars 2 in the theater, and you were really upset, and you kept getting up and going to the bathroom, because, I went and I was like, are you okay? And you're like, no, man, they're gonna hurt Mater. Mater's gonna die. It's okay. We went back in and like you sat on my lap the rest of the movie, because you were scared. And I was like, if you get scared, you can just put your head on my shoulder. And that's how we watched the movie, sitting right here.
But no, it was a great movie. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Nothing surprised me in it. The sound, the color, everything was just as it should be. It was great, and was having a ball.
And I do remember, like, it was one year for Christmas, you'd gotten a bunch of, they weren't little ones, they were big ones, and they were like, the ones, like, they were the racers that, like, you pull back and they were plastic, and like you had like a Doc Hudson, and I think you had the yellow guy,
Ramon?
Chick, or maybe it was a Ramon. I think you had a Chick Hicks too. But like they were big ones, and like you pulled them back, and like that, and then like you let them go, and they would take off racing for whatever reason. At the old house,
I know what you're gonna say.
You put that in the air conditioning grate, the heat grate, and like let it go, and we never got it back. Like it's in the ductwork of that house somewhere.
I believe, I remember. I believe that was Dynaco Lightning McQueen. I think that's which one I put back in.
Yeah, I can't remember the actors' names, like the people that voice
Owen Wilson, and
Larry
the Cable Guy.
Yeah, like you'd watch the special features, them talking about it and how it was made, and then like there'd be all the short things that would come out, and like Mater and the ghost light, and you know, Mater and this, and like, and then you would run around, like you'd be outside playing or be on the swing and you'd be spinning, and I'm happier than a tornado in a trailer park.
I'm happier than a tornado in a trailer park.
Fighting the lines and everything.
It brought back, you mean today?
Yeah, well, yeah, but
Cars, I don't know. I thought maybe we would never get over cars. I just had a feeling that he brought cars with him. He took cars home with him. He went to the store and looked at cars. I mean, everything was cars. And he still loves cars. So, and that's okay. That's okay, by golly. He's just doing it well, that's all. He wants to make films. And I say, that's fine. Just do it. But I still see this little kid with all his cars and all his Toy Story friends and all his Thomas engines. And believe me, it takes some clearing out of all this cloud up here that I've got to remember all this stuff. But he is so full of creativity. He's so full of desire that he wants to do these things. And I want to help him do them. So I know there's probably things that I've forgotten to say, but in my mind's mind, I see this little guy sitting on the floor in my house playing with all these things and just talking like an adult and telling me what I don't know and just loving every minute of it. And for that, I'm grateful that I was part of it.
as I grew into my teenage years, I grew an appreciation for cars unlike before. The themes of friendship and learning to slow down and enjoy the little moments struck a chord with me like they never had before. And I guess that's true because watching it now, as an adult, I can say that Cars is the movie I needed to watch at this point in my life. I needed to learn to not be in a hurry and enjoy the little moments. And that's the most important message of Cars. The characters, setting, and story are all great. Don't get me wrong. But the message of Cars is something anyone, no matter how old you are, can relate to. At some point, we are all going to be in a hurry. Whether that's to hurry to grow up or move on or anything of the sort. And we all need to learn that slowing down and stopping to smell the roses will always and should always be important. Cars has always been my favorite Pixar film, even when I was in denial of it. It has always been my favorite. Coming back to it as an adult has got to be one of the best decisions I've made when it comes to watching films. Pixar Cars is my childhood favorite film. It's my comfort film. And it just makes me feel so damn happy. And I think that's the most important thing that something like film can do for you. Make you feel happy. And for me, Cars does that like no other film. I got back into collecting Cars diecasts in December of 2024, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. It sounds cliche, but it's one of the things that has made me feel good during a point in my life where not a lot of things have. There is nothing that is like the serotonin rush that I get from running into a Target or Walmart and finding diecasts I'm looking for. It's something that I think I'm always going to just love doing. Hell, just like my grandma said, she thought I would never move on from Cars. And well, she wasn't wrong. But to end it off, I do have one question. What do you think what does the word childish mean to you? And to go off of that, do you think playing with toys is considered childish? at an older age or just any
No,
in my
it's
teenagers?
learning. It's learning and imagination. It's learning imagination, which everybody needs, and applying it.
I don't think it's childish. I think it can be therapeutic if needed.
That's pretty much what I said.
Yeah.
Okay. I just didn't say it that way.
I enjoy doing stuff that I remember doing when I was a kid, off and on. So.
Hula hoops, pogo stick.
But yeah, just
what does the word childish mean to you, and is playing with toys? Do you consider playing with toys or collecting or anything like that childish?
Just hearing the word childish, I feel like it has like a negative connotation to it. Usually when people use it, it's to, they're criticizing someone and, oh, that's childish, and, saying someone that's too old to be doing an activity, and it just seems like it's mostly used like in a negative way. Do I think playing with toys and collecting them is childish? No. I think that usually as a kid, we're in such a hurry to grow up and be an adult. And when really we should, once we are adults, we realize like how much we should have held on to those parts of being a child and that innocence and that free play and creative and, imagination. And so I feel like, more people should get back to that. And, if playing and collecting toys, interests someone and brings them joy and, helps them to remember that like childlike innocence, then how could that be a bad thing?
So, I guess that's it. It's a weird feeling, because, I've been wanting to make this for almost 2 years, probably longer than that, and it's weird knowing that it's done. I wanted to make this to immortalize my childhood in something and make sure that all my memories and other people's memories aren't forgotten, and so that I can look back on something in a few years. But it's just weird knowing that it's done. And I also wanted to talk about, well, if what I'm doing here is childish and what it means to be childish, and well, I've come to the conclusion that it's people's opinions. I don't care if this makes me childish, then I guess I'm childish. And if this ending feels a little abrupt, well, it's just like life. You start down the path not knowing where it's going to lead you, but you enjoy the ride.